When Jesus was dying on the cross, God the Father took the sins of the world and put them on his Son Jesus, and Jesus became sin. And when he became sin, he was separated from his Father.
See, this is the inconsistency that I'm speaking of. Like, how are they one at this point? That's what I'm not understanding.
Atheists have determined that there is no higher being, therefore, and because life ultimately has no meaning, therefore, it does not really matter if I go blow somebody's head off. But I think I'm going to try to see if I can phrase this correctly. There may be a problem with the argument because there is no definition of ultimate meaning. Who says that? How is it possible to know that there is a necessity for such a thing to exist? And who says that the meaning a person imparts to their own life is not any more important than some abstract notion of ultimate meaning? So I choose my own meaning. That doesn't mean everybody has to follow the same meaning. Maybe there's somebody who is very diametrically opposed to my meaning. But that doesn't mean that the choices I make are irrelevant. Who are they irrelevant to? They are relevant to me. Maybe they're relevant to somebody over there. That's fine. But they're relevant to me, and that is what matters to me. Right? So it's not irrelevant.
Right. What really means a lot to me is that I am the greatest. No, I'm not kidding. I really am the greatest. That brings my life meaning, significance, and worth. I am truly the greatest.
Maybe it is perhaps healthy.
Why? Why, Cliff, do you feel that you are the greatest? Because I feel it. Why, Cliff, do you insist that you're the greatest? Because it gives my life value. Cliff, have you ever considered the possibility that in reality, you're not the greatest? I don't concern myself with that. I just feel good by asserting that I am the greatest.
Why would this?
That's a dream. That's a fantasy. It's a lie. Because in reality, I'm not the greatest. Now, if in reality, I am simply an accidental collocation of atoms, if in reality my number simply came up in a Monte Carlo game and chance mutations and natural selection brought me into existence, then for me to stand out here and say, I have worth, I have value, is just as ludicrous as me standing out here saying, I am the greatest. But if there is a creator who has created you and me for a purpose, for a reason, and if this creator has eternity in mind for you and for me, and if this creator has given you and me a conscience which enables us to understand the difference between right and wrong, good and evil, then there is a basis for the value of self-worth, for affirming the value, the intrinsic, innate value of a human life. That is the worldview of theism. That is the worldview that Jesus Christ puts forth in the New Testament. And if I find in many people this innate drive for meaning in life, it's reasonable for me to conclude we were made for meaning, we were made for purpose. There's got to be some type of God who created us, and by gollies, I've got to examine this Jesus Christ carefully, because if the evidence is he's reliable, man, it'd be very wise for me to put my faith and trust in him.
First of all, I would like to address that it may not be necessarily unhealthy to hold the view that I am the greatest. That does not necessarily lead to poor decision making or anything like that. Now, most other people will say, well, that's not real, but big whoop. That's what they think. So in any case, that aside, moving on further, then you stated if there is a certain chance, then somehow you equated the conclusion that, oh, I can conclude that I'm the greatest, and then you went on to say, but that's not what reality is. That there seems to be, what happens is that most people, what matters is what people agree on. And most people would agree that you and I are probably not the greatest. But that is all that can be said about that. And it is just an artifact of psychology that we search for meaning. That doesn't necessarily necessitate that there is meaning.
Right.
But that's just the conclusion you just made. You know, all these people, they're searching for meaning. therefore there must be a meaning. Maybe there's a meaning for themselves, in themselves, based upon their environment, based upon what they do, their friends, and affected by all these other myriads of factors. But it does not mean somehow that there's ultimate meaning and that I am meaningless.
Jesus said, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. That's the purpose of human existence. Jesus said, I am the resurrection and the life. He who believes in me will live even though he dies. Because there is eternity out there, because there is life after death, it means that what you and I do in our lives today has ultimate significance. It has eternal consequences. Everybody has faith. You as an atheist have faith. You're obviously not committing suicide right now. You're living for something. You're motivated by something or someone. You have faith that something is worth sucking wind for, eating 3 meals a day, expending the effort that you're expending. You have faith, sir. So do I. I have faith that Jesus Christ is reliable. I simply ask you to go over your life with a fine-tooth comb and answer the question, what is the object of my faith? And then ask yourself, what's the evidence that whatever it is I put my faith in is reliable, is true, is not going to let me down?
It's just dealing with the Trinity, the aspect of the Trinity, because I think the way I see it is that, please correct me if I'm wrong, okay? So there's Jesus, there's the Father, there's the Son, the Father, and the Trinity, I mean the Holy Spirit.
Right.
And the idea is that, but Jesus is also God,
right,
and the Son of God, right?
Right.
And when he was here, God was still up there,
yep,
and the Holy Spirit was connecting them both. Is
yep,
that how it works?
Uh-huh.
Okay, so when, and why would Jesus like then talk in third person, or why would he talk to the Father? That's like, and remember, I think when he was on the cross, he raised the question of, oh Father, why hast thou forsaken me?
Correct.
And it just, makes me question a lot of things on why would God be asking himself these questions?
Great question. What you're getting at is the mystery of the incarnation, the mystery of God becoming a human being. Obviously, what Jesus claimed was to be part of God, God the Son, the second person of the Trinity, the Son becoming a human being.
No, but that means that there are three then. I mean, like, that there's another part of it. I mean, you just said it's like a different reincarnation, right? Like there's a different incarnation of it. So that means that they aren't exactly one. I mean, they're three, right? Or at least they're two in this part.
What we mean is that when Jesus became a human being, part of God became a human being. That's why Jesus talked to his Father in heaven. That's why Jesus prayed. He was talking to his Father. He was part of God, humbling himself, becoming a human being, and he was talking to his Father.
No, but I mean, but the relationship is different then. You know you see what I'm trying to say? But if he's God, why would God call himself Father? That's what I'm not understanding.
All right, he's part of God who has chosen to limit himself and become a human being.
Okay.
So Jesus is not all of God walking around in a torso. No, he's not all of God.
Okay.
He's part of God, becoming a human being, limiting himself, walking around with a torso,
so at this
who
point,
talks to his Father.
He's a different entity then, right? He isn't God at this point. Because since he's limited his power.
Oh, God can limit his power. When he gave you and me a free will, he limited his power.
Definitely. Well, I don't agree with it. But I mean, look at it, that's a whole different issue. But the fact is that if God would come down here in a different form, he wouldn't be the same God that he was up there, right? Wouldn't there be this sort of inconsistency?
No, he's the same God, but he's part of God, humbling himself, limiting himself, and becoming a human being.
Okay. All right, and the question of like, why did he say, why hast thou forsaken me when he was on the cross?
You bet. Great question. In 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 21, the Apostle Paul writes, God made him, Jesus, who had no sin, to be sin for us, so that in him we might become the righteousness of God. In other words, when Jesus was dying on the cross, God the Father took the sins of the world and put them on his Son Jesus, and Jesus became sin. And when he became sin, he was separated from his Father.
See, this is the inconsistency that I'm speaking of. Like, how are they one at this point? That's what I'm not understanding.
All right. When we say that God is an entity, what do we mean? We do not mean that God is 1 million miles out that way with a body. Like the Sistine Chapel ceiling that Michelangelo painted. And then with God's finger, he reaches out and zaps Adam. No.
Yeah.
Jesus says in John 4 that God is spirit. So God is not a physical entity 1 million miles that way or 2 million miles that way.
Yeah, I agree.
No, God is a spirit, spiritual being, not an it, but a personal being who loves. As the God who is spirit, he chose to partially limit himself and become a human being in Christ.
So there's a divide in that spirit then, right?
Yes.
That a piece of that spirit was
Right.
not at that point.
That's right.
So at this point, there were two different gods in two different places.
No, it's one God, but part of God who is spirit, who's not an entity 1 million miles out that way or 5 million miles over that way. The God who is spirit chose to humble himself and have part of himself become a human being.
Okay, all right. And I'm sorry, can you please continue the story now? Like you said, I think you're on the part where I think God was putting his sons on all the sins of humanity onto his son, right?
Onto his son. And so Jesus paid the penalty for our sin on the cross. Now the words that the New Testament authors use to describe that are substitute, sacrifice, redemption, justification, and reconciliation. All of those words refer to and describe exactly what happened on the cross. Christ was our substitute. He took my place in paying for the hell that I deserve for my wrongdoing. He was a sacrifice. He sacrificed his life for me. He died to justify me. I have done wrong. The God of the universe judges me for my wrong. Christ took the penalty in his body to justify me. It's a legal concept. And then out of the marketplace, the New Testament authors use the word redemption. Christ bought us back. He redeemed us through his death on the cross. And then the Bible uses a relational word, reconciliation, to point out that when Christ died on the cross, it was to restore the broken relationship between God and me.
So, but why did he use those words? That's my question. Why would the God say to himself, "Oh Father, why hast thou forsaken me?" That's what I'm just asking.
Because when he became sin, he was literally separated from his Father. He had been with his Father throughout eternity, and when he became sin, he was literally separated from his Father, and in his cosmic alienation, in his cosmic loneliness, he cried out, my God, why have you forsaken me?"
So at that point, there were two different entities, because you just said it right now, that they were separated.
If you define a spirit as an entity, I have no problem.
Well, yeah, that's what I mean. But then there's Jesus, who's flesh and blood, right?
Right.
Yeah, so there is a different entity at that point. You have
And
the
that's,
spirit.
if you want to define entity that way, fine.
So then where is the monotheism? Like, where is this, where is this consistent with the Old Testament? Where there was always, like when Moses came down, when Abraham came down, all they would preach was the same message of, do not worship me, I'm only man. Worship God, the oneness of God. That's my question. Like, I believe in one God. I think that it's rational. And I agree with all things that you say whenever you speak of God. But whenever it comes down to the concept of Jesus, and a man that came down to, sacrifice himself for my sins, I don't believe in that.
All right.
Because if God is so powerful, why would he need to send down himself?
Okay. In Exodus chapter 33, when Moses sees the back of God, do you know what I'm referring to?
Oh, no.
All right.
I mean, I'm sorry if I'm taking up too much time.
No, you're not. Don't worry. You're raising great issues. I thank you for raising them.
I think there's also like Deuteronomy 18:18, where I think God talks to Moses and says, "Like unto you, I will send down a messenger among your brethren." And I think, who is it? Forgive me if I'm wrong. I think Paul or I think Peter. He speaks of it later on in the Bible, quoting back on that verse in the New Testament, saying that yes, because of this, as justifies the Old Testament's text. But I think it's a very vague assumption.
All right. In Exodus chapter 33, the Lord said, I will cause all my goodness to pass in front of you, and I will proclaim my name, the Lord, in your presence. I will have mercy on whom I have mercy, and I will have compassion on whom I have compassion. But he said, you cannot see my face, for no one may see me and live. Then the Lord said, there is a place near me where you may stand on a rock. When my glory passes by, I will put you in a cleft in the rock and cover you with my hand until I have passed by. Then I will remove my hand and you will see my back, but my face you must not see. When God passed in front of Moses on Mount Sinai, do you think God was in North America or just in the desert on Mount Sinai?
I think it's a very figurative speech. I mean,
Good.
I don't take it in a very literal sense.
Well, Moses...
As you said, God is a spirit. He doesn't have these hands. And it's just all a figurative speech. Because I think even at that time, hands in the Semitic language meant more so the power of the hands than the power of the back.
Great.
So,
excellent. But obviously, God appeared to Moses there in Mount Sinai. But all of God was not just on Mount Sinai. God is omnipresent. God is spirit. And yet God chose to reveal himself very particularly to Moses at that time. That doesn't mean that all of God was on Mount Sinai. And so when Jesus walked on earth, that does not mean that all of God was in a torso walking around Palestine. No, God is spirit.
But that still doesn't answer the question of the inconsistencies with, when I talk about the inconsistency of the fact that where is it in the Old Testament? So it talks about the Messiah coming and the sort of savior type person that will, bring in the new, the covenant, right? Am I wrong? But where does it say that this person that will come, this prophet, will be, the Son of God, will be God himself down in flesh? That's my question, like in the Old Testament. And if you can please answer that. And I'll be done after that. Sorry. Because to me, I think, I've talked to a couple of people of the Judaic faith, and they say that, they believe in the Messiah, the Messiah that's coming, but they do not believe that this person will be God. So if they have this view, I wonder where this sort of, this nuance, this sort of new idea that the person that will come, this prophet, is going to be revered as God. That's my question. Because I believe in Jesus, I'm not going to lie.
Who do you believe Jesus is?
A prophet. Go on.
Come on, my Muslim friend. Let's put it right on the table, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's obvious.
Yeah, your line of questioning was pretty obvious.
Yeah. I also have my Muslim Student Association t-shirt on, so. I also wanted to commend you. I mean, it's a big deal to come out here in front of, it's a huge university, 50,000 students, so.
For to us a child is born, to us a son is given, and the government will be on his shoulders, and he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Isaiah chapter 9, verse 6.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Would you say that everything that is created, everything that exists, has some form of an intrinsic meaning, just in your personal belief?
If it's created, yes. If it's not created, no.
All right. Well, what exists that is not created?
Well, if there is no creator, nothing is created.
Okay, but
it just happened.
In your personal belief,
my personal belief is
you believe in God. You believe that everything that exists has been created, and therefore it has a purpose.
No, not everything has been created by God.
Okay.
Right. But I am convinced that this man has been created by God. That is why he has innate value.
Okay. What happens to something that might exist but does not have some sort of intrinsic purpose, as most atheists or some agnostics would say?
Well, if it is true, I mean, if I believed that there was no creator, then I would have to believe that this gentleman has no innate value. He just happened. Now, maybe our culture gives him value, but maybe our culture doesn't. Maybe his IQ is so low that our culture says he's not that valuable.
Okay. Now, as you said, you believe that some things were not created by God and therefore were not given some form of innate value or meaning, correct?
No, what I meant by that is, if I slap him, I don't think that's God's creation. I think that's my creation.
That's your action.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
All right. What then would you say is the intrinsic purpose or the intrinsic meaning of God?
Okay, what do you mean?
What is God's ultimate purpose? If everything that exists has some form of a meaning,
Yes.
what gives God meaning? What gives God a purpose? What is God's purpose?
He has not let me in on that detail.
Okay.
It's a great question, but you see, I am limited in my knowledge of God to what God chooses to reveal. If God is silent,
Okay.
there's no way I could just make it up.
Okay. Also, what are your opinions on, there are certain areas of the Bible that aren't necessarily followed as strictly anymore, especially in the Old Testament.
Yes, sir. Yes, like Leviticus?
Major areas of Leviticus and stuff like that. What is your opinion of that? If the Bible is indeed the Word of God.
You bet.
What is your opinion on the disregard for things that are no longer considered appropriate?
You bet. I am convinced that whenever you interpret any document, you need to respect literary style and read in context. And I think the context of the Old Testament and the New Testament makes it very clear that the Levitical laws God gave specifically to the Jewish people for a particular time in their history. They were a theocracy.
Yes.
God led them through Moses. They are not a theocracy now.
Okay. So what then would be a sort of a litmus test for what, say, out of Leviticus is valid or invalid these days? Like, I know the first 7 chapters or so are all about specific kinds of animal sacrifice for specific kinds of sin. This is obviously not considered valid these days. Like, what is there any form of a litmus test for what's valid and what's not out of this archaic theocracy structure?
That's a very hard question, and obviously people disagree on that one. The way I work that one through myself is distinguishing between Exodus 20, the 10 Commandments, a moral law, moral absolutes, versus Levitical laws that are designed for a particular nation, culture, people group at a specific time. So I would argue that the 10 Commandments apply today.
Okay.
Whereas the Levitical laws for that specific people at that specific time do not apply today.
If I were to say that good and evil were defined by evolution, I mean, based on evolution, you can explain why something would be good and why something would be bad, right?
No.
Because, well, you can, theoretically.
It's called social Darwinism. It's scary.
Right. Yeah, it's like
scary.
Self-interest, right? Everybody's looking out for themselves.
Survival of the fittest. What a horrendous basis for ethics. Horrendous.
But there's so much
used by
proof.
Hitler and the Nazis. Very effectively. Scary.
I mean, the way it's not, I don't think it's scary though. I mean,
you don't think survival of the fittest as a basis of ethics is scary?
Well, I mean, it depends on how you look at it. If you look at it as things become the way they are because that's the most successful path, then it's not scary.
Well, if survival of the fittest is the basis of your ethics, why on earth would you sacrifice limited time, resources, and finances to take care of handicapped people?
You can actually explain that theoretically with evolution.
Yeah, well, I think if you're going to put survival of the fittest as the basis of your ethics, it's far more logical to reason that you do not provide for the handicapped because they are a drain on your your limited resources.
Okay, but listen, actually I just read something about this. Cooperation is something that's completely necessary for human survival. So in order for people to cooperate, people have to naturally be altruistic. So that would have to evolve. People would have to naturally want to help in order for human society.
I'm glad you feel that way.
Well, you don't agree?
I'm glad you feel that way, but if you're going to try and make an argument that survival of the fittest leads to an ethic of compassion for weak people who are dying, I think you got your work cut out for you.
And also, it's a balance between survival of the fittest for the individual and survival of the fittest for the species completely. So you wouldn't want to. That's why it would be bad. That's why it would obviously be wrong to take genocide. Genocide would obviously be wrong because you're killing off so much of your own species, right?
Okay.
So evolution, I mean, you have to accept that there's a balance between doing what's best for yourself and what's best for your species.
But if evolution is the basis of right and wrong, then if you've evolved to the point where you believe that it's good to take care of handicapped people, but I've evolved to the point where I believe it's best to wipe out handicapped people, you're not right, I'm not wrong. I'm not right, you're not wrong. It's all relative, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a good point. But I mean, it's kind of like competing interests, you know?
Yeah, but nobody's right and nobody's wrong. But you see, if in reality this man is created in the image of God, then it is absolutely evil for me to steal from him, to lie and deceive him, to murder him, or to have a racist attitude towards him.
But you're saying what makes it evil is because it feels evil. It feels wrong to do that, right?
No.
How do you know
No.
it's evil? How do you know it's wrong?
I know it's wrong because in reality, he's not an accident. He is created by God for a purpose.
But if you don't assume that,
God.
how do you know anything's wrong if you don't know that?
Well, the evidence is God does exist.
But if you set aside that, I mean, because what I'm saying.
If you set aside that, then
How do you know
everything's
anything?
relative.
How do you know anything is wrong? Because it feels wrong.
You don't. All you've got is what is.
Well, you have a conscience that tells you when something feels wrong, right?
If there is no God, the conscience is just social conditioning. It's your own biases and prejudices. That's all the conscience is.
Say that again.
If there is no God, your conscience is just a result of social conditioning. It's your own biases and prejudices.
Or conscience could be evolutionary.
Yeah, but if there is no God, all evolution is matter and energy evolved to a higher order.
Right. Well, I guess what I'm saying is that evolution, in order for anything to be here, there has to be something greater. But
Good. There's got to be a God.
there's got to be something, yeah. But I mean, I just don't see where the proof is that the Christian God is the one.
Well, there's no proof.
I don't see why I should believe that.
Because the evidence is that Jesus Christ is reliable. When you read his teachings, when you read the Sermon on the Mount, those are not the teachings of a quack or a madman.
Right.
Those teachings have the ring of truth. As Robert Coles of Harvard put it so well, all the ethical writings over the past 2,000 years have simply been footnotes to Sermon on the Mount. I mean, you talk about mental hygiene, that's what the Sermon on the Mount leads to, mental health, mental hygiene.
Jesus didn't say anything about humans being the final stopping point in evolution. So,
Oh yeah, he did say that you have a soul. He did say that you have a personality, and that he loves you, and that he wants you to spend eternity with him in heaven. He did say that.
That's what sets us apart in evolution, is that the soul, is that somehow we developed a soul.
God gave you a soul. God gave you a personality. You're created in his image.
So God gave dogs a soul?
I've never had a good conversation with a dog, so I don't know whether a dog has a soul.
But I'm saying there's no evidence that dogs have a soul.
Yeah, I don't know what dogs have. I
Right.
can't talk with them, so I don't know.
Right. So how can you just assume that if humans evolved from another animal, that
Oh, I don't know
suddenly-
that.
That's what the Catholic Church is suggesting is likely.
Well, sir, I don't follow the Catholic Church, okay?
But it's
I try to think on my own.
It's Christianity. I mean, how can you just agree to something that seems so fundamentally challenging?
Well, sir, I don't follow a group of people. I don't follow Christianity. I follow Jesus Christ. And Jesus Christ never answered the question, what process did God use to create? So I don't know. I turn to science to answer that question. But Jesus did say that he loves you. And he wants you to spend eternity with him in heaven, but you've gotten separated from him because of your sin. So now ask him to forgive you for your sin, put your faith in him, and he'll give you eternal life. That's pretty cool, isn't it?
Yeah, it's cool. Everybody would love to believe that, I'm sure.
Good. So do you?
Earlier you were saying that you don't, like, I really understood and listened to your entire explanation of how you can't really be agnostic.
Right.
But I mean, that's how I feel. Like, genuinely, I feel like I don't know what to think.
Okay.
It's a debate between what I want to believe and what I feel is actually true. I
Right.
feel like I'd be lying to myself.
Okay. But you are living for someone or something. You do have some faith now.
Yeah.
You're a
there has to be
motivated
something.
person, right?
Right.
And if you weren't pretty highly motivated, you'd never be a student at this fine university. You're working. You're making things happen. You're living for something. You've got some fine motives. Well, so now all you got to do is go back and ask yourself this evening, what motivates me? What am I living for? What is my faith in? You're not here by accident, that's for sure. You are following a pretty intense course. You've got some motives. You've got some deep faith that all of this is worth your effort.
So you don't think that could just be a result of me being here by accident?
No. If you're going to try and convince me that someone gets into UT by accident, I think there are a lot of people who can't get into this place who would love to be here in your stead, okay? You ain't here by accident.
I'm not saying I'm here by accident. I'm saying that I'm alive by chance.
Oh, okay, fine. If you think you're alive by chance, I would encourage you to re-examine that one. Do you really think that life comes about by chance? Do you really think that the rational mind that you possess that is so finely tuned is a result of chance? It seems to me more reasonable to believe not that non-reason produces reason, but rather that reason produces reason. It seems to me far more reasonable to believe that a designer designs designer genes, not that designer genes come about by chance. Well, you are far more complex than any set of designer genes. It's far more reasonable for me to believe there's an intelligent mind behind you than it is for me to believe that you just came about by chance. And part of why I say that is, sir, because I don't think I'm probably as intelligent as you are. I really had to study hard in college. I mean, very hard. And I tried to play basketball in college, and I just barely made it, man. It's incredibly hard for me to put a ball through a round metal hoop. It didn't happen by accident, believe me. So I had to work my head off, and I had to go out and shoot thousands of shots to get the coordination to put a ball through a hoop. Things just don't happen by chance that are orderly.
I don't know if I'm ready to completely discount that idea to say that things can't happen by chance.
All right, I don't think you have to totally discount it, but what you have to do is you got to ask yourself, what's more plausible, what's more reasonable to believe in light of the evidence?
Well, that's what I mean. I feel like evidence points me in the opposite direction from religion. But I want to believe. So it's just like, it's such a contradiction.
Well, why do you want to believe?
Because it's so much, I feel like my life would be happier. Like,
well, then if you believe your life would be happier by believing in Christ, why don't you take a step of faith to the best of your ability, put your faith in Christ, and try him out? And if he doesn't work, reject him later on.
Don't you think that that's not the way to,
Sir, my brother's in genetic research. I can promise you, sir, he's got to follow a lot of his hunches. If you think someone in genetic research has everything buttoned down before they start going at it hard, come on. You got to take hunches. You got to take pieces of evidence, and you got to follow them. And if it works out, great, and if it doesn't work out, then you move on to something that's more reliable. That's the way all of us pursue knowledge. I hope none of you guys here think that because you get a BA in history here, you know all there is to know about history. I hope none of you guys think that because you get a PhD or do postdoc work in history here, that you know all there is to know about history. Nobody has exhaustive knowledge in any field. And I can promise you, I'm not claiming to have exhaustive knowledge about God or Christ, but I am standing here saying the evidence points to him being reliable, and the evidence of a life lived in obedience to Christ as Lord brings so much joy and fulfillment and hope and peace that, by gollies, it's well worth following that hunch for a while to see if it really grows on you. Jesus said, ask and it shall be given you. Seek and you shall find. Knock and the door shall be opened. For everyone who asks receives. He who seeks finds. And to him who knocks the door shall be opened. And one of the reasons I follow Jesus is because I live in one of the richest counties in the world. And I know from experience that what so many students are attaching the life that they live to, the wagon of materialism, is going to lead straight to despair, straight to hell. And I've seen it. Obviously not literally hell, but a hell in terms of broken relationships, busted up families, incredible hollowness, because they put their faith in the American lie, and that is, in money I trust. That's a faith. It's a faith that leads usually to a midlife crisis. It's a faith that leads to bankruptcy, spiritual, relational bankruptcy. It's a big option in our culture.
Well, I mean, that's not really an issue for me at all.
Okay, so what are you going to live for?
I think about that a lot. I think relationships are kind of, to me, it seems like the emotions that you associate with relationships are always the strongest.
Great.
Getting in a fight with somebody that you're close to, it feels terrible. Like you.
Excellent
think about
point. You bet.
that. A
I'm
good
with you.
relationship always feels.
Good. So life is all about relationships, isn't it?
Right.
That's the bottom line.
So you're gonna relationship with God.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you've experienced, I think you're right on, man. I think you're absolutely right. Life is all about relationships. So, read the Gospels, because that's exactly what Jesus taught, that life indeed is all about relationships. And obviously, Jesus said, love your neighbor as yourself. That's key. That's part of why God made you, to live at peace with other people, to have good, solid relationships. But then he also points out that this ability to love, that I think you're beginning to understand, is really at the bedrock of life. Yeah, where does love come from? It's not matter and energy. It's the ability to sacrifice, to serve, to put the interests of someone else before my own interests. So there's a paradox in life. It's as I give my life away in loving and serving someone that I'm surprised by real joy, by real life. And then Jesus points out, okay, now this ability to love that you have, that you treasure so much, is a gift from God.
Relationships have a lot to do with everything.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
During the 60s at the Sorbonne, the French University in Paris, there was a student riot. And a young man walked up to a bearded man who was rioting, and the young man said, what are you rioting about? And the elderly gentleman, bearded gentleman said, I'm protesting this lousy world. Young man asked, do you believe in God? The bearded man said, no, I don't believe in God. I'm an atheist. Young man asked, do you love anybody? And the bearded man lowered his head and said, yes, I love a woman by whom I've had a child, and she's dying of leukemia. Young man asked, well, if she's dying of leukemia, why don't you ditch her and go out and get some other fox who turns you on a little more? Bearded man hauled back and almost hit the young guy. Young guy said, excuse me, sir, you said there is no God. If there is no God, there's no real value of love. There's a biological drive, there's an instinct, but there's no real value of love. And then the young man pulled out a Gospel of John, where we read that there is a God, and this God is love. And when he created you and me, he hardwired us in such a way that we can really love. Not just motivated by instinct or biological drive, but by a free choice to actively wish the well-being of somebody else.
You can explain it that way, and that's how it is explained.
That's the most reasonable way, as I see it.
But I mean, that's not the most reasonable way for me, because there isn't proof for it. I mean,
There's no
just,
proof for anything, sir.
There's logical evidence that, like, things you can see, reasons why you would know that a loving relationship would be beneficial to species survival.
Yes. That's good. So what? That doesn't mean there isn't.
So
it's not more reasonable to believe God created us with the ability to love.
The emotion that we call love, I mean, love really is just a word, right? It's something we use to describe a feeling that we get.
No, it's more than a feeling. It's the ability to freely choose to work for the well-being of somebody else, to sacrifice, to serve. And I don't have to do it. I can hate, I can be apathetic, I can write you off.
I don't know if I agree with that. I really think love is a feeling.
Okay, I disagree. I think that's part of why so many marriages are busting up. Because people define love as a feeling that you fall into and you fall out of. And I can promise you, sir, it won't be long after you marry her that you will fall out of love with her. You will have trouble in your relationship. And then you will have to make a decision. And the decision will be, am I going to forgive her for the horrible things she said to me, or am I going to hold it against her and allow it to harden me towards her? In other words, your romantic love at some point is going to have to turn into a faithful love. And if your marriage is based on a romantic love, i.e. a feeling, your marriage will self-destruct. About 90% of the time. I'd say that maybe 1 out of 10 might make it if they're lucky.
Well, I mean, what are you basing that off of?
What am I basing it on?
Personal
I'll tell you what I'm basing it on. Trying to keep marriages together. working with adults who are
That's
married.
a personal experience.
Yeah, personal experience. Working with couple after couple after couple, after couple after couple. Watching divorces take place. Working with the children of divorce. That's what I'm basing it on.
Okay. I'm gonna let other people talk.
Thank you so much for raising the thoughtful issues you have.
Hey guys, thanks so much for tuning in to this episode. Like and hit that subscribe button in order to join the family. Also want to invite you to our church where we pastor at in New Canaan, Connecticut. It's called Grace Community Church. We are currently meeting at a middle school, Saxe Middle School, and we start at 9:30 a.m. Hope to meet you there. See you soon.